So it said recording in progress, and I clicked, got it. Okay. Nice to see everybody on the screen. Nice to see everybody in the room. So the translation of that line that you quoted that I like is, even if there's one hair's breadth, heaven and earth are separate. There's actually a koan about this. And then the response that, so someone quotes this to some Zen master, I forget who it is, maybe Stan remembers. And then the response that the Zen master gives is, even if there's no hair's breadth, heaven and earth are separate. So, okay. Are there any questions? Yes. You have no hairs on your head, so there's no hair's breadth.
Right. Yeah, no mistakes. So, what are the 3 biggest mistakes that people make with Zen practice?
What are the 3 biggest mistakes?
Yeah.
The one biggest mistake that people make is thinking that there's such a thing as a mistake. And that's the only mistake. Okay?
That's not the answer I was expecting, but...
Well, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, so let me expand on that a little bit. Yeah, so when we practice and when we first start practicing, and there's 1, maybe 2 people here who are, pretty new to this, I would imagine, because I've never seen you before, but that doesn't mean you haven't been practicing in a monastery somewhere for 5,000 years. But anyway, yeah, so when you first start practicing, you have this idea, right? I know I had this idea that I was going to get enlightened right away, and be declared a Zen master right away. It's pretty funny. That this amazing thing would happen to me, and somehow my mind would just expand and see the whole universe, all time and space, and be like never suffer again and never feel bad again and maybe live forever. I didn't really believe that. But just this idea that this thing is going to happen to us. Or maybe we have this idea that everything will go well for us. That's sort of a entry-level kind of expectation. Because everybody wants everything to go well for them, and maybe this is the thing that's going to do it. Or maybe we have the idea that it'll make us better at something. Like when I had been practicing for a few years and I started taking voice lessons, and my voice teacher kept asking me, well, don't you do visualization meditation so that your singing will be better? And I'm like, no. So there's this sort of purpose-driven meditation that people sometimes do. They want to be better tennis players. They want to be better. Oh yeah, as golfers. As a mathematician, when I first started practicing, and I went to a math conference in Hungary, where people are really intense about their mathematics, and I said, oh, I'm doing this meditation, it's really great. And somebody said, well, do you prove more theorems? And I said, no. And he said, well, I'm not interested. So we have this, this kind of purpose. So we have all these ideas about meditation, But when you actually start doing it, you discover that's not what it's like at all. And I'm not going to tell you what you discover, because we all discover different things, because everyone's karma is different. Everyone's different, So, but you sit there, and whatever happens, it's not what you expected. And then people say, oh, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it badly, The only way you can do it wrong is not to do it. So back when I first started practicing, and I hadn't met Stan yet, I wasn't married yet, I went on, blind dates. We didn't have apps back then. We didn't have computers barely back. No, we didn't have computers back then, right? Much less cell phones. So I would go on blind dates. I forget how they happened, and I went on a blind date with some guy, and he was a professor somewhere, and I was a professor somewhere. This was back in Boston, and you were going on our blind date, and I mentioned, oh, I'm meditating, it's really wonderful. And he said, oh yeah, I went to a Quaker meeting once, and you know, it was really boring. So I just wrote this paper in my head, you know, was writing this paper that I'm working on. And then that made it worthwhile. So that's bad meditation, when you're not doing it, right? But as long as you're trying, your mind wanders, you bring it back. Your mind wanders, you bring it back. You know, you start being obsessed by something, you look at it, you say, what are you? What are you made out of? You know, what's your substance? You know, the substance of your obsession. And I don't mean in the psychological sense, well, my mother dumped me in the toilet when I was 3 years old and flushed. I didn't mean that. I mean the actual, like, almost physical substance of whatever it is that's, you know, really bothering us, right? That has us by the scruff of our neck and won't let go. So you get a chance to look at all this stuff. So you can't do anything wrong. You just keep coming back and coming back and coming back, and your karma keeps coming up and keep coming up, and you look at it, and gradually, you know, things do dissolve. Gradually, you have more clarity. But it's not like you try for it, because then you have an idea, oh, I want clarity. That doesn't work. Just moment by moment by moment by moment. You know, when I go on, I don't think I said this in the talk yesterday. I think I said it privately to someone. When I go on long retreats, maybe I did say it in the talk, I'll repeat myself. When I would go on long retreats, and the first 5 or 6 or 7 days, you know, it's like, you know, you're up in the mountains, you're in a beautiful place, it's really wonderful, just, you know. And then, you know, this stuff starts bubbling up. You know, you're tired, you're pissed off, you're thinking about somebody you don't like, you're thinking about something you're going to have to do when you get back, you're worried about a friend, you know, something like that. Pop up, pop up, pop up. That's when the retreat begins. You know, that bliss. That's not what it's about. It's about moment by moment by moment by moment. Wake up. I don't snap very well. You snap very well, right? Yeah. I don't know if you online could hear it, but Austin really has a good snap. So yeah, the number one mistake people make about Zen practice is thinking that there's a mistake. Okay? Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
There's an open microphone.
Well, there are also people online. Do I see someone unmute themselves?
I had a question.
Sure.
Yes. Yesterday was amazing at the retreat, and I had a question. I guess, like you said, after the meditation, feelings arise, and how do we deal with those painful feelings?
Just look at them. Don't try to escape them because they'll chase you. In fact, they hold on even more if you try to run away from them. So this method, technique, whatever you want to call it, what is your substance? Like, you know, this is polyester, right? This is plastic. My watch band is plastic. This is a glass, and inside it has water, which I will conveniently drink from. So just really looking at it and saying, what is your substance? And then there are also, you know, sometimes feelings are so painful that you have to distract yourself from them. I mean, sometimes they're just unbearable, and then this doesn't work because they just have such a hold on you. Then you have to find some way of distraction. It might be running, tennis, it might be, you know, music, dancing, taking a long walk, you know, whatever. Sometimes you just have to distract yourself. You know, bows are really good. You know, do 1,000 bows a day, man. Nothing's going to bother you except your knees and your back. But yeah, so, but if it's not unbearable, then, you know, just looking at it, what is your actual substance, what are you actually made of, can be helpful. Or sometimes you can just invite it in, say, oh, sit down, have a seat, I'll pay attention to you later. Some people use that, almost like inviting them in for tea. Come on in, have a cup of coffee, just sit over there in the corner. I don't want to talk to you for a while, That can work too. Yeah, I think, your question, I think about that 11-year-old girl, in Uvalde, who smeared the blood, I'm going to start crying thinking about it, smeared the blood of her friend who had just been killed next to her, and tried, and called 911 in a hushed voice. How is she going to live with those memories? I gave these nice little easy words, but sometimes how do you live? You're changed forever sometimes by things that you go through, and how do you deal with them? And she is dealing with them in a very interesting way, which is really wonderful. She decided to face them and give testimony so that she'd help other kids. And I am going to start crying. It's an amazing thing that she did, this real bodhisattva action. Instead of, trying to forget about it, she's like, okay, I want to make sure this never happens again. And I can use what happened to me. This was almost what she said. I want to make sure this never happens to another kid. So I want to talk about it. Because I can talk about it, because it happened to me, So that mind also, you can, whatever your situation is, you can always use it. You can always use it to help others. So yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Is there a difference between, if I ask what is my substance, it's carbon and nitrogen, and there's a substance, like the glass.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this, whatever this is, skin and protein.
Could you speak louder into the microphone?
Skin and protein, and
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Is there a difference between that substance and the mind-thinking substance?
Well, yeah,
what
this
the
is carbon and
substance of your
protein and stuff
thinking?
like that, and the mind is not.
Huh?
The mind isn't made out of, different proteins.
Right.
Right.
So there is a difference. Are you looking at your total substance, the substance of your thoughts?
You
the
decide what
substance-
you're looking at. You
Okay.
decide,
okay.
okay? And it's not going to have an answer that you can write down and everyone can check off, oh, when I had that kind of thought, that's a substance. It doesn't work that way, okay? The substance is fundamentally empty. And you perceive this fundamental emptiness, which is not the same as a void, it's not the same as nothing. It's incredibly fertile. It's continually creating this universe. But you penetrate everything until you can touch that. But talking about it doesn't mean anything. So a long time ago, we were practicing in a building that had a basement under the Dharma room. This was when we had our little Zen commune. It was, 6 adults, 4 of whom became teachers, 3 of whom became Zen masters, and 2 children, toddlers. It was kind of interesting, and it was a very old house and it had a very old basement, and so our Dharma room was what would standardly be the living room, and it was on the ground floor, so the basement was below it. And I remembered having this distinct feeling when I was sitting there that the floor was transparent. And I actually knew, it's not like I could see through the floor, but I had this sensation of seeing through the floor. It was kind of weird. And I think that was some kind of glimpse of, the emptiness of kind of that things are not, you know, solid the way that we think they are. I mean, this floor, which is incredibly solid, it's a really beautiful floor. I hope everyone on screen eventually gets a chance to see it. A lot of you have. This is beautiful oak floor, right? Is it oak? Yeah. And, but it's almost all like empty space, because matter is empty space. You know, it's empty space with a few things whirling around in it, and those things are made up of other things. You know, like you have the atoms, and they're made out of electrons and protons and neutrons, and those are made of different kind of quantum things. And you know, I don't know how far it goes. It's not like turtles all the way down. It eventually stops somewhere, but we don't see it that way. You know.
We don't feel it that way.
We don't feel it that way. Yeah. When I
Your
said.
head on it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, our senses are always mistaken. It's really wonderful. We're always wrong about everything. But yeah. So I don't know how I got there, but anyway. Yeah, hold everything lightly, which doesn't mean don't see how serious everything is. You know, the Bodhisattva awakens to the suffering of this world. That's why Kuan Yin has 1,000 arms and hands, and each hand has an eye. And Kuan Se which is it's Kuan Shin Yin, is the full name, means perceive world sound. So you perceive the sound of the world, and what is that sound? That's the sound of suffering. But at the same time, you don't sink, you lift. Everyone together. I'm rambling, but that's how it goes. Yeah, it's like that movie title, Everything Together All at Once. Everyone, everything,
Everything everywhere all the time.
Everything everywhere all at once. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's a real Mahayana movie. They really took the sutras and they really embodied them. I mean, it's silly and it's fun, but it's really embodying a lot of Mahayana teaching. It's kind of interesting. So we have time for one more question. Okay, no more questions. So we can stop recording.